Hey guys, so I had an awesome conversation with one of my buddies at gym the other day, and he was asking me if he should train his abs, and the answer wasn't simple. We ended up talking for about 10 minutes about it, and pretty much I just wanted to get into that in this video today because I think it's some awesome sort of information just to know if you're a little unsure about how to see your abs or how to get them visible. So firstly, when I say abs, I'm talking about the muscle that runs straight down here, the one that you can see if you're lean enough, the one that everyone calls your abs. It's your rectus abdominis, that's the actual name of them, and it's just a muscle that runs from up here and all the way down here. So firstly, the muscle itself, it doesn't have a whole lot of potential for growth. By that I mean, you could look at a insanely shredded bodybuilder who trains his abs all the time, whose arms are, out here and all that sort of thing, and then you look at his abs versus someone who, is just a regular person with just regular abs, and the difference between the actual size of the muscle on both those people, while it's different, and obviously the bodybuilder has bigger abs, it's not as big as, say, the difference between the size of their arms. The normal person's arms might be that big and the bodybuilder's might be gigantic. So that sort of shows you that it doesn't really have a huge potential for growth. That's not to say you can't grow it with training, because you can, but you might get diminished returns, or you might sort of not get as much bang for your buck training it after a while. So that's something to keep in mind when you're training your abs. So it might not be worth training them 4 or 5 times a week. So that sort of brings me to the next point. Why would you train your abs and why wouldn't you train your abs? I think a good reason to train your abs, or a great reason to train your abs, would be if you had any sort of muscular imbalance. So that could be quite a few things. The most common thing I see is some people that don't really train their abs at all in any sort of fashion. Sometimes they have a sort of like a protruding belly, and it's not necessarily because they're fat. Like, they might actually only have a small layer of fat there, but they still have this big gut. It can be for a few reasons. It could just be genetic, but sometimes the reason is actually that they have a really loose or underdeveloped or underactivated rectus abdominis muscle or ab muscle. So that can sort of cause it to protrude a bit. Sometimes, and I think this is pretty common actually, sometimes people get lower back pain from a few things. One of them being that they have that loose core, so it sort of allows that belly to protrude forward, and then to sort of compound that problem, they have a tight psoas muscle, which is just a muscle that runs from your femur, so just down here, all the way up to your lower back. So it sort of closes this gap here. And if that muscle's tight, you got to think it's going to pull on your lower back, and if your lower back isn't really being held there or pulled in like that by any of your core muscles, including your rectus abdominis, that's just going to pull on your lower back, and your abs are just going to allow it to come forward pretty much. So you need to tighten that. Obviously you need to stretch your psoas as well, but you need to correct those imbalances so that you're not going to get this hyperextension or leaning, like, lordotic curve of the lower back. So that could be another really good reason to train your rectus abdominis. And another good reason could be just that you don't really train your rectus abdominis that much. So maybe you do need to train your abs a little bit because you don't do it at all. I think you can always benefit from a little bit of training, but doing crunches and sit-ups and all those sort of things every second day is probably not going to contribute to being able to see your abs any more than just focusing on them here and there is going to do, just because of that low potential for growth and the fact that it's just being covered by a layer of fat, of course. So I think that it kind of brings me to my next point, which is sometimes the best way to train your abs, when I say train your abs, the best way to see your abs is to not focus on being able to see your abs. If you're focusing on being able to see your abs, you're going to be training your abs all the time, doing crunches and all this sort of stuff, but you're not really addressing the core problem, and that is that it's covered by a layer of fat. So it's kind of like leaving your sink on and then water's flooding your bathroom or whatever it is. And instead of turning the tap off, you're just mopping up the water. It's not really addressing the actual root of the cause, the root cause rather. So sometimes I think the best way to train your abs is to get rid of that layer of fat. So the best way to go about that is obviously, it's a whole other topic in itself, but it just becomes focusing on, you know, all aspects of training and having a better body composition. In other words, being leaner, having less fat and more muscle. So sometimes the best way to train your abs is just to not focus on training them at all. If you look at a lot of elite athletes, they're obviously not focused on having a visible six-pack, yet they have a very visible six-pack. And this is just because their level of training is very, very high. So that causes, and not just their training, but their diet, of course, as well. So that level of training and diet results in them having a really good body composition. In other words, a lot of muscle and very little fat, particularly, you know, very little fat. And then that results in them having very visible abs. So there you have it, guys. That's why I think you should and shouldn't train your abs. Hope you guys enjoyed it.